I was an engineer throughout the first 3 years of working, and I was a mechanical engineering student and mechanical engineer, research and development for a manufacturing firm. And I had worked as an RA in college for 3 years, the last 3 years of college. And I started with another friend a program called, at the time it was just an organization that looked at poverty in the developing countries. So every couple weeks or once a month we would have a movie about poverty, and then to put a face on these films, we would go once a month to an orphanage in Tecate, Mexico. And the point wasn't to feel bad for them or anything like that. It was to just interact with the little kids and play. And we would do things like a haunted house or a soccer tournament, or always we had some kind of activity for the day, you know. And we always brought our own food, and we cooked food for them sometimes and stuff like that. And it was just one of the most amazing experiences I remember having throughout college. That's where I met my wife, you know, and we got to really know each other through that experience. After I graduated college, I kind of went on like a hitchhiking tour through Central America, and just really was drawn to just really exploring, you know, interactions with people, and especially little kids, you know.
Yeah.
Whenever they find kids are really inquisitive, and they'd always want to know where I'm from and what I was doing. And so I was always really enjoying that part of it. Then after that, I stayed at the orphanage that we used to visit as an evening director, and kind of tutored, kind of made sure that they'd have dinner, and, you know, just kind of hold the fort in the late afternoon after they got back from school. And I did that for maybe a month or 2 months, and then finally go, you know, I have this degree, I have absolutely no money, and I better try to get a job, you know, in engineering, just to give that a try. And so I really enjoyed it. It was fun. All those experiences, though, working with youth, really kind of just as an RA, as you know, all of those things were just telling me something.
Yeah.
And my wife was going back to school at San Diego State. We were living in LA when I was an engineer, and she was going back to school. So I was just like, why don't I try going back to school, become a teacher, you know, try it out. If I don't know, then, you know, I'll never know.
Yeah.
And try it. So that was 20 years ago, and never looked back. I've been teaching for 20 years now. I think I have never been more happy in my entire life at this stage in my life. I think the personal growth that I have could only have happened through learning from my students and from my colleagues, and just being in this environment of learning and empowerment. And so trying to be peaceful, trying to work through any of the challenges that, you know, life throws at you. This is a challenging environment, and it's hard work, and at the same time it's awesome joy. So I think when I look back, and I do that often, about my life, you know, through high school, through college, through engineering, and I would say the most difficult days were teaching. However, the biggest gifts, you know, I call challenges gifts. They're from teaching also. I would say, you know, this is super challenging to be in education and to have stamina and keep going at it for 20 years. It's really takes a lot out of you. All this gray hair, right? And so I mean, honestly, it's like I am happy, not because of teaching, but because of the lessons and empowerment that I've received through my colleagues and working with students. So having gone through the current journey I'm on right now, and just being as happy as I can be, you know, just being, waking up every day and wanting to come to work, wanting to get up and greet the day, and being as mindful as I try to be. and what kind of peace and joy that gives me. So I think I came to those kinds of things through challenge, through hard, whatever life gives you. You know, you're always going to have them, and some of them you create on your own. Some of the mistakes I made were huge, you know, because I was young and didn't know. I didn't have any kind of. My parents were really great mentors for me. However, I left and never went back at the age of 18, and you don't know anything. And I certainly didn't get any guidance from college, from my teachers nor counselors or anything. And so, like, I was just a little boy that really honestly just thought he could handle everything, and it turned out to be way harder. So I think this world will always provide challenge to everybody, no matter what. And I think you could either be a grumpy or sad, or, you know, a lot of emotions you could affect by those reactions. Those reactions could be to any stimulus, right? And I just found that being, even though it's a struggle, you know, none of that serves me in my pursuit of happiness, you know, and I think social emotional learning is key, because that will last forever, you know, like they may not use some of the physics concepts. Is it important? I think going through the mental challenges and you know, giving yourself gifts through going through difficult mental challenges, academic challenges, group challenges, building a project doesn't work, making mistakes, I think is super important. But it's how you respond to those challenges in life, and you're going to have really tough ones. You know, you go to college and there's some really tough things that are going to happen, and to me, how you respond to those versus react will make it gifts, or they'll make it, you know, tragedies. You know, you could, a lot of tragic strategies are doing drugs, you know, or hurting people and things like that. Those are things that people feel they have to do in order to make things right, you know, for whatever pain they feel. And so what I feel is super important is if we can do any kind of help to the social emotional learning of anybody, I think it's really important that we do that, because that's a given, is that their lives will be filled with challenge. And those tools that they can get from somewhere, from their parents, from wherever, will last their life, you know. So that's why I consider it to be one of the most, if not one of the most important opportunities that we can provide students in school. When we started High Tech High Chula Vista, my colleague Kay Fluelling and I really were struck by some of the schools we visited, and ones we felt were successful had focus on the habits of heart and mind, and were implementing them in the classroom as well as school-wide. And I was really struck by how the kids were able to communicate these habits, whatever they may be. The school chose them. And so the first step that Kay and I did, we really tried to integrate them within the team, you know, so it was common language between me and Kay. That's the simplest start. And then there were reflection points of that, and then it turned out to be their POLs was centered around how they grew in the habits of heart and mind throughout the semester. And so once there was an assessment of that, then it became, wow, if we're going to assess students on their growth in cooperation, or growth in compassion, or growth in refinement, we better teach it to them, you know, we better be able to support them in their growth and being able to communicate what that growth has been. So just having our focus being on the POL and the TIOL, the interview we call it, instead of a presentation, on the habits of heart and mind has been like really important for us to drive us to do other things in the classroom. And that has a lot to do with just, a simple project like a bridge project or the chain reaction project at the beginning of the year. I do, each project could be called, perseverance project, because that's one of their habits. And so this is going to test your perseverance, because we're going to go through many refinements. And so reflecting on, obviously we reflect all the time on High Tech High Chula Vista, but in this case it's really important because it's their POL that they document and have artifacts of their growth. And so it's important that we as team teachers provide them with experiences and the communication and language to support them in saying, this is how I grew, with evidence, and not just, this is how I grew, but actually with evidence, which is another habit of heart and mind, evidence. The start of Peace Leadership was, Brooke Gonzalez was a teacher here, and very good friend. She went through and got a master's degree in peace studies with my wife in the same cohort a number of years ago at the University of San Diego, and she got hired that next fall as a humanities teacher here. And so we kind of knew through my wife each other, and after a while I was part of ASB for many years. And I felt like there needed to be another avenue for leadership in the school, and so did Brooke, and so we were both toying with this idea of another kind of group. We had an amazing group. They were mostly juniors, I believe, at the time, that came to both of us and said, we want to create a group, a class, a student interest group, and we want to lead it. We want to do actually lead all the class and everything like that. And we want to develop our own project for the year. And we were still toying with the idea. And then we were starting to recruit kids that would really want to be involved in this. And then the end of the year happened. And that was the year that Sean Fuchs was murdered by his father. And that was, after spending my whole year as his teacher, every day, every school day, and then this on the last day of school, being told that this had happened. I mean, it was probably one of the most. It was probably the most crushing day of my life so far, because you never expect anything like that. It's just horrific and horrible, and just the whole thing and how it happened. And Sean had written, with Kay's class, had written a poem, and it was, the basic effect was that he was kind of saying that us as humans, we've really poisoned the earth, we've really been done awful things to each other, and it was kind of sad a little bit, the whole thing. And then one of the things that he said by the end is that if he passes away or he dies, he wants to know that he contributed positively to the world. And he was only like 14, and so he just never got a chance. And so after that summer, I went and did a HIMSA institute at the Cal Poly Pomona, and ahimsa being nonviolence. I had 2 weeks doing this kind of like seminar study, and then I was further inspired, and Brooke went as well. We both went through the program together, and we were just committed. We had this great group of kids that were committed, and both of us were committed. And so all of these things came together, and I swore that my life would mean something in the memory of Sean, that he didn't get a chance to be that positive influence, and whatever I could do to make it right, which it can't be, but I felt some responsibility as his teacher or someone who cared about him, that I could do whatever I could do to have a positive influence on the world if I can. And so that was the start of Peace Leadership. It was, that first year was amazing, great bunch of students and great bunch of people. And they're all pretty much getting close to graduating college now. It was like 9 years ago. So that was the beginning. It's interesting. I think from Peace Leadership, I hope they get hope. You know, I think being around some people that have hope, I have hope. It's hard to have hope in terms of what's happening in the world. A lot of times it's easy to see the negative and feel like you can't do anything about it. And so I hope that you guys go away with hope that you know there's other ways and new perspectives to see about the problems, you know, and that kind of like the lesson I've learned is like to find the best and good way through any of the challenges. There is one, you know, there is no like, and that's why like, you know, for me war isn't the answer to. It's not a positive direction to solve the conflict or the challenge that the world, that area faces. I know that's our tragic strategy in the world right now, and we've been doing it for years, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years, and it hasn't been really working. I mean, definitely we're at a, you know, if you want to just say we're at a peaceful time in history, yeah, you can say that, but there's still a lot of suffering happening as well. And if we really want to create the least amount of suffering in the world, we still need to find that positive way, you know, the constructive, positive way. And so that to me is that hope that there is one, and that you know we'll figure it out as long as we stay the course. With my class, I think I want them to be able to be real critical thinkers, to be resourceful, to be little engineers. You know, all of the problems you have in the world are you're going to bump into all the time. Is to have meet it with curiosity, meet it with like there is doesn't always have to be a solution, or if there's a solution, it's already out there. You know, don't reinvent the wheel. That's being part of being resourceful. I think knowing some awareness of the habits of heart and mind, knowing when you're refining, knowing what you have good evidence, knowing and having awareness about what it means to be mindful, knowing and being aware of when you're cooperative and compassionate, and when you can see other people's perspectives, and when you feel like giving up and you can persevere. All that awareness you need to have before you can actually do anything about it. So all of those things I think is what I hope kids get out of my class in general, is they're little engineers, little problem solvers, and they can use tools and draw and do all kinds of strategies for figuring out things and coming up and designing, being artists and all that. So I think that's my hopes for my class and Peace Leadership. If you really knew me, you would know that I am a serious, what everybody considers a nerd. You know, like Star Trek and comic books, and my guilty pleasure of zombie flicks, and, you know, just a lot of that, you know, building things at home and, you know, tinkering and all that kind of stuff. If you really knew me, you knew how how much a part of my life it is. So I think that's, like, if you really knew me, you know I like to joke around, and I have a lot of fun with classical nerdy stuff. You know, like I get all the jokes on what's that the TV show? What's that show called? They're the guys that live together, and their girls across the hall, and they're all professors and researchers at the university. It's
Big Bang.
Big Bang Theory. So, like, all the jokes from the Big Bang Theory, I get those jokes. I don't think a lot of people understand all the references they have in the show. I get every single one of them. So that's how nerdy I can be. So yeah.
Okay, that's it.